Yes, a very warm welcome also from my side. I'm very happy to talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in this session. And I'm very happy also to welcome two very distinguished conversation partners. This is, first of all, Liz Ortiguera. Everybody knows her. She's the CEO of PATA, the Pacific Asian Travel Association. And I have with me also Ursula Petula Barzey. She is a blogger, a Caribbean blogger, but she has also her own company, which is the Moxee Marketing. 20 years in the business, also very well known. And she's also the founder, co-founder of the Black Travel Alliance. So very welcome. Because we do not have much time, we want to jump immediately into the first subject, and this is vaccine equity. You know, the thing, it's not over yet. Even though by now Corona seems to have taken the back seat, it's still there. And even in Germany, we have again rising numbers. I just heard it today in the radio, because you have all the refugees coming in from Ukraine who are not vaccinated as the German population, and they still have a road to go. And this brings us once again to this very important discussion. And I think it hasn't been discussed enough. It has been quite ignored, even though all the big associations, I think, could have done something. But one association who has not ignored it was definitely PATA. You had started very early to discuss this subject. So Liz, I would like to ask you, deep inequity, which we really have in this planet, and access to vaccines, what does that mean for the travel industry? And of course, what does it mean for the communities as well?
Actually, it means a lot for the world. Only about 56% of the world is fully vaccinated right now. About 3 billion people need their first vaccines. And as you mentioned, no one is safe until everyone is safe. So as long as widespread transmission of COVID-19 occurs, more variants can emerge. Just yesterday, the UN Secretary General called the distribution of vaccines scandalously unequal. So it's very important for us to close the gaps everywhere. And the goal by mid-year is to achieve 70% immunization of all people in all countries by mid-year.
Yeah, so there really is a responsibility of the tourism industry. I think we all agree on that, because we travel to the countries, we want people to come to our countries, so we have to take action on that too. What can be done? What do you think from leadership side, but also from company side? What can the people in the tourism industry do?
I think most people feel it's such a big challenge that the governments need to sort it out, but governments always have a first duty to their own citizens. We launched the Global Travel Sector Vaccine Coalition to raise awareness and engage the private sector and consumers to take action through the Go Give One campaign for WHO. $5 buys one vaccine. Also, with the expertise of UNICEF, last year we shared vaccine education and community engagement strategies. The travel sector comprises of so many industries, and you know, our people would be the most globally minded and be the most aware of the inequities in the world. So there are three things that can be done. One, advocacy, make people aware that it's still a gap and an issue. Two is education. If you have a platform to educate governments or communities, let the experts in the agencies combat disinformation. And then three is giving campaigns. Corporate donations or campaigns to engage consumers to donate a vaccine with each purchase, as an example.
But that means that also small tour operators can do something, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And, you can, it's really enabling, because the reach, what UNICEF is doing, for example, they go to the most remote locations on the planet. And I think that whether it's education, supporting the education, supporting through even micro-giving, micro-donations, or, offering, we've got idle resources. The travel sector has supported this humanitarian effort in so many ways, with, for example, hotels serving as quarantine hotels or MICE venues functioning as vaccine centers. I've seen tour buses converted into mobile vaccine units, for an example. So we've got the logistics and the reach to be able to also help.
What about patents and intellectual property rights?
Oh, well, I think, my personal view on that is that I think from the beginning it should have been open licensed. And I'm happy to see, that there are some low-cost new vaccines that have been developed that are open licensed. And so that's a great, a new bit of progress that's happened just in the last month or so.
Yeah, so we really have to think about it again and do not drop this subject, because it's not over until it's over. And until everybody in the world, we are one globe. So we have to think globally in tourism, So Ursula, you came around quite a lot. I said that already. You have met more than 20 years experience, and your award-winning platform, Caribbean & Co., is also like a best practice of how to communicate with people in the tourism industry. You heard what Liz just said, but this is, of course, not the only inequity of tourism. There are several unfair conditions all over the sector, unfortunately. So, and one thing is, of course, the missing representation of people with other than white European backgrounds in the tourism industry. And especially if it comes to better paid jobs or management jobs and C-level jobs. So can you give us a little bit your opinion on that?
Yes, the lack of diversity across the whole travel industry is a major concern, because we know that travel itself is worth about currently about 5% of the global GDP, down from about 10%. And so travel is a very important sector. And even with all the challenges from COVID, people are still getting on planes. They're flying around the world, and they're looking for new experiences. Including, experiencing different cultures. And so they want to make sure that they have a welcoming time when they get there. And so that lack of, diversity is a real problem. And it's not just a, American problem, it's a global problem. And so, moral, we've just got to do better. And two, it just makes good financial sense. As more people move around, some of these niche audiences that we're not paying attention to are worth huge sums of money when it comes to travel. MMGY just did a major study last year, and they did it on the Black traveler, and they looked at Black travelers from 5-6 different countries, starting with the U.S., which is the biggest market. And there, Black travelers spent $126.9 billion. In Germany, where you're at right now, it was $8 billion. So in France, it's $6 billion. In the UK, Ireland, it's another $9 billion. So the sums add up. And that's just, Black travelers. Once you start talking about Asian travelers, Hispanic travelers, those sums, begin to get even larger. And this is key because, in major markets in the U.S., in 20, 30 years, the demographics is drastically shifting. Look at the census data. Those who are in the minority now will be part of a huge, majority. And so it's for this reason why we really need to start, paying attention and make sure that travel at all levels is quite, diverse. Yeah,
and it has to be catered to. I mean, there are no ads. There's not. It's always a wide world. We have to say that. And I mean, even we should also look into our own mirror. I'm aware of it, and awareness is always the start. We do work on it. If you just look at our speakers here at the convention, how many are people South Asian or people of color? Altogether 14, I counted it. But it's, we are still working on it. I think awareness creating is always the best thing to speak about it. But what can destinations and especially also travel brands do? And what can we do? What can everybody do to increase diversity and inclusion in the organization and overall operations? being more inclusive and more welcoming to all tourists, irresponsible of race, gender, sexuality, sexual orientation, or disabilities.
Yes, so I would say the first thing is to, acknowledge that there is a problem within the industry and view it as an opportunity, because from increased, diversity and inclusion, it's just a better work environment. You get to know your, customers better, and, ultimately your destination will be more popular, which means more revenue for, everyone at the local level. So once you've done the acknowledging, then you have to look internally. Okay, what does my operations look like? Of course, look at your staff. So at the management level and all throughout, how diverse is that? But then you really have to go beyond that, because staffing is just one aspect of diversity. Look at your conferences, as you already alluded to. Beyond your conferences, let's look at your marketing and your advertising. So yes, you may be in Germany or a Scandinavian country, but if you're looking to attract folks from the North American market, then it's up to you to make sure that your marketing ads are quite diverse. Same thing. If you're planning press trips, inviting journalists in, how diverse are these trips with the people that you are selecting? If you're doing anything on a charitable level, whether that be, giving funds or, maybe you have an internship program, how diverse is that?
Yeah.
And then one important thing is take a look at your vendor list. Okay, maybe your staff is not diverse because maybe you are in a country that is quite, not diverse, but take a look at your vendor list, because there is a real opportunity there to make some headway.
Exactly.
Because again, if you are in London, where I'm based currently, but again, I'm going back to Canada, or even France, US, and I'm looking to attract a diverse audience coming in, when I'm hiring my PR agent or my marketing agent for these markets, how diverse are the marketing agencies that I'm looking at? That is key, because they have so much input into what gets put into the marketplace. And all of that, collectively, together makes for a more diverse and inclusive industry.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a role of recruiting policies, it's marketing, and it's also education, right?
Yes.
Also, when we talk about women, we have the same problem sometimes. I mean, only 5% of CEOs in the travel industry are female, even though in global average, it's more than 50% or around 50% working in tourism. So there's also this well-known glass ceiling. So what does PATA do to face these inequalities also when it comes to women and women empowerment?
Well, a few days ago when it was International Women's Day, we ran a marketing campaign, and I have to credit the young women on my team. They came to me with the idea of doing mini interviews with women leaders that I know around the globe to ask their advice. So I invited some of these great women leaders from various countries across my region and beyond to say a few words of advice. And every woman wanted to participate. As busy as they are, they all wanted to support the next generation of women. It was important for me to let young women in Asia see leaders that reflected their heritage and culture. So I called on my fellow women leaders in Japan, Saudi Arabia, China, Malaysia, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and several others. And it was really important for them to see women that had achieved, that looked like them and reflected, their culture and heritage. And I think that was very important.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is such an important campaign. So coming back to other diverse backgrounds, because it's not only, as you said, it's not only Black people in tourism, people of color. It's accessible tourism. It's LGBTQ plus travelers. It is all about there are so many ways of discrimination and so many ways of to change that. So, but I think it's always the same if we cut it down. We need education, we need different approaches, marketing approaches. We need to show the people, if you don't see yourself when you look at a campaign, so why should you go there? And you don't feel welcome. It's not about getting pampered especially, but just feeling welcome. And we need role models. I think that's so important. Ursula, do you think that it's easier to find Black role models, for instance, in the US and the Caribbean than in Europe?
Well,
because you're living in London, right? I mean, it also depends on, there is a colonial history in France and in Great Britain, which is much different to Germany. So there are many people of color living also in Britain. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 million, close to 2 million Black people who live in the UK versus, 44 million Black people who live in the U.S. So the numbers are quite different. But for any destination or travel brand that wants to attract Black executives, Hispanic, Asian executives, we're out there, and it's easy to find us. Technology has made it a lot easier. We're all on LinkedIn. We're all on these networks that just make it so much easier to find us. And so the whole argument that I don't know where to look or that's just nonsense. It's like, if you're serious about, diversity and, whatever that means to you, you have to put in the effort and go find what it is that you seek to make sure that your goals can be achieved. Saying, oh, there's no one right in front of my face. Well, no, go make the effort, look, further than your own network. Hire, people who that's their full-time job. There's lots of, organizations that have now popped up to help, travel brands and, DMOs do this on a whole, other level. And so you've got to invest because, again, if the moral argument doesn't grab you enough, and it should, but if it doesn't, let's look at the economics of marketing to these diverse groups. Yeah. We're talking about billions of dollars. Yeah. And so your destination, your travel brand is going to miss out if you don't take action.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in it.
That's okay, then that's okay.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do, but there's also money in it, yeah. And this is what people have to understand. I think it starts. It's all starting now. I don't know whether it's also because people could rethink in the pandemic. We're running out of time. So just one word. Which should be the first step to enhance DEA in any business? Just one word. Liz.
Yeah, maybe. Support your people.
Support. And Ursula?
Yeah, I would say, acknowledge, embrace, that's 2 words, but it's, you've got to acknowledge and you've got to embrace the change that comes with, DEI.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I want to leave you. We have to continue the conversation, and we will, I'm sure, next year at a physical ITB. I want to have you here, and we will have this discussion. We keep on going, and thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, and see you at next year's ITB.
Thank you, Rika.
Thank you.